All right, and welcome into a new episode of the Zero Technique Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Stern. Make sure you are following all of our social media. I am at rstern33. Follow the show on Twitter at Zero Tech Pod and on Facebook, the Zero Technique Football Podcast. Backsportspage.com is always producing us. Follow Backsports Page on all social media. Check out backsportspage.com. Both myself and my co-host today have some great stuff up there right now. You can find my Rangers Hurricanes series preview, and you can find my co-host tonight is Clarke Wood. How are you tonight, Clarke?
I'm great. I'm great. Doing fine. Sports are back this week. We finally made it.
We made it. We got some opening day baseball going on right now. The Yankees and Nationals in the first baseball game of the season. We've got some preseason or I don't know what they're calling it in the NBA. Exhibition games leading up to those final 8 regular season games. Next week, on August 1st, we got the NHL coming back. I know nothing is going to be in the realm of normal for quite some time, but having the sports coming back and being a part of our daily lives is definitely going to make it feel more normal than it has for the last 4 months.
Definitely, it's like a weight off your chest almost.
Absolutely. We've got a great show today. Couple topics we're going to be running through tonight. We're going to be talking about the NFL players and the stance that they took regarding the safety protocols for the return to play. There were a bunch of guys that were franchise tagged that did not get long-term extensions. We're going to discuss some of the futures of those players. Our top 5 segment is going to continue with the top 5 cornerbacks in the NFL right now, and we will have our fantasy football segment. This week is going to be studs, duds, and sleepers. I'm going to talk about some of the guys early in your drafts that you're willing to take a little bit ahead of their ADP, some of the guys that were not touching at all, especially given their current ADP, and some of the guys later in the drafts that we're finding that we're loving where they're going and going to be on a bunch of our teams. But we are going to open up with the NFL players and the stance that they took regarding the safety issues. So we also the hashtag we want to play, and I know that there was a lot of talk that, okay, they've come to an agreement on scheduling this and that when players are going to start showing up, but there was never any real talk that had been progressing about what steps the NFL was going to take for their players in terms of the safety protocols. Now, Clarke, what was your initial reaction when you saw some of these players and prominent players making their voice heard in terms of the "We Want to Play" movement?
No, definitely. I mean, you can just from their tweets alone, you can just see how frustrated. I think
Right.
that's mainly how they were just so frustrated with the league. Like you have leagues like the NBA who was doing all this stuff, like trying to keep their players as safe as possible. They're in the bubble in Orlando and stuff. I know the NFL is different, but they should at least give the players something to like put their mind at ease or something. Almost the only thing that the NFL has really done so far is require masks at games. That's all pretty much that they've said, and they've canceled the preseason. But other than that, they haven't really told the players how they're going to keep them or their families safe. And I can totally understand how frustrated the players must feel right now.
Yeah, and one of the things that they were most adamant about, which I had no idea that it wasn't part of the plan, was daily testing. We're seeing daily testing be a part of the other sports in their return to play, and when a player has gone through enough tests where they've tested negative for the virus for a certain amount of days in a row, then they're going to an every other day. But the NFL wasn't even planning on having any sort of daily testing until these players were trying to make a stance. And I mean, good for them. We know that, I mean, obviously they're getting paid a lot of money to play a game, but they're still human beings. This is still part of their livelihood, that they need to keep themselves healthy. They need to keep their families healthy. A lot of these players already have families that they're going home to every day. And football is a sport unlike any other, where the face-to-face contact is just so much more prevalent than any other sport.
No, absolutely. And yeah, we like to say, oh, they're making millions of dollars, like to your point, but they're still human beings with families, and we know how this virus can affect like anybody. Like in the NBA, Giannis or not, I think was it Giannis's mother that passed away from it? Or
No, from the Sixers.
I thought it was from the Bucks.
Joel Embiid, I believe.
Okay, yeah. Because, I mean, we can see how this virus does affect everybody at the end of the day, like not just everyday people.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Carl Anthony Towns.
That was
Carl
it.
Anthony Towns, it was.
That was it. But yeah, like that's just a great example of why these players should be cautious and should be fighting for as much safety precautions as they can possibly get.
Yeah, and I know someone who I've actually run into at I know at least one charity event. It may have been more that I've been at the same events as him. I just haven't had the pleasure of interacting with him. But Anthony Cassi is one of the more prominent, or was one of the more prominent sports photographers in New York, and he was actually very public with his fight with coronavirus. He was taking videos. I mean, this was still early on in everything that was going on. He was taking videos in the hospital, really bringing a light to things that we hadn't gotten to see before. And unfortunately, he lost his fight. He's one of those guys that when you meet him once, you remember meeting. And I was awfully sad to hear of him losing his fight, and he had a wife and kids. It was just an absolute shame to see someone like who I didn't know personally. I got to meet once professionally, and I in no way can I say that he was a friend of mine. But you see, there were a lot of athletes, there were a lot of media members that came out and were just devastated by the news.
No, absolutely. I think. Go ahead.
No, yeah.
I also think it's interesting how like other NFL teams, or just the teams, are responding to it. Like I believe on Wednesday, the New Jersey governor Phil Murphy banned gatherings of 500 people plus, and so the Jets and the Giants both canceled like no fans for the 2020 season. But the Falcons came out and said that they're going to be allowing from 10,000 to 20,000 people. I just think it's interesting how different teams are handling it. Because I personally don't think any fan should be allowed in the stadium.
No, I mean you look at these heat maps that are getting put out, and where the areas that are spiking right now tend to be in areas where there's a more lax feeling. And you look at what's going. You brought up the Falcons. Look at what's going on. And I don't mean to get political in the middle of a sports show, but there's a lawsuit going on between the governor of Georgia and the mayor of Atlanta over a mask rule. I mean, it's absurd. It's absurd. There should not be any fans in the stadium this year. First of all, who are you going to choose to allow to be in the game, to be at the game? Most of these, I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that every single NFL team, more than half of their seats are because of season ticket holders. I'm pretty sure the majority of teams have a much higher percent, but I'm pretty sure that every single team has at least 50% of their seats devoted to season ticket holders. What are you saying to your season ticket holders? Because you're not going to have 50% of your stadium full. It's going to be much. It's going to be much less than that. What are you going to say to your season ticket holders? Oh, well, you can maybe come to this game, but you can't come to this game. And how are they going to decide? It should just be no fans.
Yeah, the Falcons stadium holds 70,000, but if you only allow 10,000,
right?
Maybe a lottery. I don't know, but at the end of the day, it just shouldn't happen.
No, and especially look at in Atlanta, it's a dome, and I know it's a large dome, so the amount of recycled air is just far greater than if you're going into a grocery store or something like that. But it's an indoor facility where there's still recycled air. It's not the fresh air that I think would be required for a gathering to occur. But hey, I'm glad to see that the players were able to take a stance, and you know what? I'm glad that the league came to a response as quickly as they did. They came to an agreement that there's going to be daily testing until I think a player tests negative 3 days in a row, and then they're going to move to every other day testing. There's going to be no preseason games, and that brings me to another situation. There's going to be a ton of injuries.
Oh, absolutely.
All those soft tissue injuries that you see at the beginning of a normal preseason, even towards the end of the preseason, and with the fact that I think it's 20 days into training camp until they're allowed to put on pads. They're not going to have enough time to get into any sort of prototypical game shape to and tackling. These defenders are going to have to go into game one not having tackled anybody since last year.
It's going to be, it's going to be like up until like week 4, week 5, where you're going to start to see people really hitting their stride, I think. But before that, it's going to be interesting to say the least. Like,
and I know one thing, and this will actually be one of the things that I talk about in our fantasy segment. Rookies. What is this going to do to rookies? all these, and the one rookie that I'm least worried about is someone like Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow has enough of a head on his shoulders. He's also going to be, my opinion, the only rookie quarterback that's going to start week 1. I don't think we're going to see Tua. I don't think we're going to see Justin Herbert. We're definitely not going to see Jordan Love. Again, barring an injury, which and barring a positive test. We just can't foresee into the future what's going to happen. But these rookies, I think, are going to get off to a much slower start than we're used to.
Oh yeah, like your offensive tackles or your running backs who like need to get up to NFL speed type situations are gonna be feeling it week 1 through 4. I bet. Like it's gonna.
Offensive linemen, I think, may have a little bit easier of a time making the adjustment. I think wide receivers are going to, I think, get murdered.
Probably.
You just can't develop any sort of chemistry in the way that these practices are going to be held. So I think wide receivers are going to rookie wide receivers, and I think a lot of rookie defenders. There's so many more different schemes that a team's going to have to adjust to defensively than they are offensively. So I think the rookie defenders, rookie receivers are going to be the ones that are going to be hurt earlier on.
No, absolutely. It's gonna. Wow, COVID's just really taken a dent out of our sports.
Yeah. So I mean, like, it's good. We have sport. At least we're talking about the getting underway of the sports.
Yeah.
We now have a timeline. Chiefs and Texans, rookies and quarterbacks started reporting earlier this week.
Yeah.
I know most teams are now getting their players into camp to begin the testing process of everything, and we're getting towards the light at the end of the tunnel. Obviously, there can be a gate that comes down and blocks that light from coming through, but at least we're talking about the timeline of now actually getting underway.
No, it's definitely silver linings.
Right. So another thing that I wanted us to start discussing was some of these guys who were franchise tagged and did not get long-term extensions. What is the future for these players? And look, we didn't see a whole lot of franchise tag players get signed. I believe it was only two.
Chris Jones and Derrick Henry, right?
Chris Jones and Derrick Henry.
I think that's
And good for both of them. Derrick Henry, if you're a running back and you can get that big second contract, all the more power to you. Absolutely. Because with the abundance of running backs that are in the league now, with the great group of running backs that were in this year's draft, and another great group of running backs is coming up in next year's draft. You need to secure that payday any way you can. And one of the podcasts that I listen to most regularly is the Fantasy Footballers, and they're one of their famous sayings: "Don't let your boys grow up to be running backs."
No, definitely not. Too short a career.
Yeah. So, right. Shorter career. Obviously, they have the shortest lifespan of any NFL positional career. The replaceability at the position is just much easier than almost any other position. And like I said, the abundance of just so many talented running backs in the league at one time. But there's obviously one player that we have to talk about first, and it was the biggest news throughout the whole franchise tag season that we had, and that's Dak Prescott down in Dallas. He did sign his franchise tender pretty early. But they were not able to come to terms on a long-term deal. And from what I hear, they weren't even close.
Yeah, you hear the report of one party reached out to another party at the last minute to try and get a deal done. I'm fairly positive that it was Stephen Jones reaching out to Dak and his camp, but I wouldn't be surprised if Dak just laughed in their face at that point and told them to just go away. That's a frustrating situation as a Cowboys fan. Just we could have signed him for so much less, and now we're either going to have to sign him for a lot, or we might lose him, which is going to be even worse.
Yeah, if they come away from this with Dak Prescott not being the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys in 2021. It's going to be one, and sure, yeah, everyone comes out and says, well, is Dak a franchise quarterback? He hasn't done anything. Hey, Dak Prescott's better than any other player that isn't a starting quarterback in the league right now. He's a better quarterback than more than half of the starting quarterbacks. And he's right now, he's an above average starting quarterback in the NFL.
In my opinion, he's top 10. So I think maybe we'll
Yeah.
get our own opinions right there. But I just it's and this you see like time after time, a team gets a good quarterback, they lose that quarterback, they go into a period of just darkness, and
Right.
when they struggle, like when Dan Marino left Miami, or when John Elway left the Broncos. I don't want that to happen to the Cowboys with such a talented roster. I think Dak has the potential ability to win a Super Bowl. Whether or not the Cowboys will sign him remains to be seen, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean Miami's still looking to replace Dan Marino.
Yeah, exactly.
It's over 20 years now, and they're still looking to. I can't remember the number, but I want to say it's been. I think it's been over 30 quarterbacks have started a game for the Miami Dolphins since Dan Marino retired.
I would not be surprised. They had a little bit of Ryan Tannehill would show you a little flash every now and then, but no, not Dan Marino, to say the least.
Right. But look at how many seasons the Dolphins had 3 different guys start a game in a season. So I mean, you have 4 of those seasons. That adds up. That's 12 quarterbacks right there. So that'll just bring that average way up. But yeah, I mean, in terms of Dak, this is a player, and obviously the Cowboys do have the ability to franchise tag him again next year. Next year, the number is going to be a lot higher because it's going to be whatever the average of the top 5 at the position plus 20%.
I think it would be 47 million would be the next year. What it would be,
right?
Yeah.
So that again, and listen, Dak's a good quarterback. I don't know, is he, because 37 million puts him as the second highest paid quarterback in the league. Unless he wins something this year, I can't see there being any way that he gets that sort of payday. And I know from what I was hearing, Dak was looking to get a shorter term contract with higher dollars per season. The Cowboys were looking to extend him out further with a lower average annual salary, but more guaranteed money. And they were just so far away from everything that I was hearing.
Definitely. For me, if I were the Cowboys, if we don't get to the Super Bowl this year with the offense that we have, and he's asking for that amount of money still, it might be time to cut ties. And that's just so sad to say. I can't imagine seeing Dak in another uniform, but it just seems like there's so much animosity between the two sides right now.
Right, and the Cardinals. I didn't that I know that was a transition tag, but they were able to get an extension with Kenyon Drake.
Yes.
AJ Green. This was a guy who was one of the prominent wide receivers in the NFL for 6-7 years. Missed all of last year with an injury. Now comes back. I can easily see this being AJ Green's last year in Cincinnati.
Oh, definitely. It seems like it's been ages since I've heard his name, which is crazy because growing up he was that guy. He was always a top 3 wide receiver. So I wouldn't be shocked if he went to another team at all.
Right. And one of the more intriguing guys that's on this list is a guy that we've all thought was going to get traded for quite some time, and that's down in Jacksonville. You have their defensive end, Yannick Ngakoue. The trade rumors have been going around since they slapped a tag on him. He came out and said, "I'm not going to sign it." So we just don't know what's going on with Yannick Ngakoue, because the Jaguars seem very okay with letting him play out or sit out.
Yeah, like for me, it's such a shame that Jaguars defense, what, like 3 years ago. Whew,
Yeah,
what a
yeah,
waste! That was such a waste when you think about it. I mean, like, are they, and like when you think about it, like if they're rebuilding, which I think they are, you might want to let him go. You don't really want a very good defensive end that's going to eat your cap space for that much with a very bad team around him. So I think he is also going to be on his way out of the Jaguars.
yeah. And over here, right around the corner from where I am, the Giants, they acquired Leonard Williams from the Jets last year. They weren't able to get, and both sides, I think, were willing to just let this go to to him playing out the year on the tag number. I know Leonard Williams was looking to get, and I think a little bit unfair. I know the Giants were trying to tag him as a defensive tackle. He won out, got tagged as a defensive end. I guess based on the scheme, a 3-4 scheme that the Giants had played last year, he was technically a defensive end. Again, that's also when he was with the Jets, he was playing in a defensive end spot. Now, defensive end in a 3-4 isn't asked to do nearly as much as a defensive end in a 4-3. The Giants are moving to more of a multiple look this year, and I can see him playing a lot more defensive tackle this year. We'll see where that goes. But Leonard Williams, the former number 6 overall draft pick of the Jets, when he came out, the year he came out, Leonard Williams was my number 1 player on my board. But because of quarterbacks that needed to be drafted, other player, he was an offensive lineman were taken ahead of him. He falls to the Jets at 6, even though he was number 1 on a lot of players' boards. Leonard Williams needs to have a big season for the Giants.
No, he's very talented. Do you, as a Giant, you're more Giants than I am. Do you think that there's a possibility of him being re-signed after the tag's up?
I think it all depends on what kind of season he has. I think if he has a bounce back, and if he puts up double-digit sacks, if he's a leader of the defense, I can absolutely see that. The Giants have expressed signing interest in keeping him around long term. I just don't think that they were anywhere close this year, and I think both sides understood that he needed to have a big season before he got a true long-term payday. So I was happy to see that there really was no animosity between both sides.
No, that's great. Absolutely. For me, one of the more intriguing franchise tags this year is the safety from Denver, Justin Simmons.
Yeah,
I think that after this year, he's due for a pretty lucrative contract, probably with the Broncos. But he's a guy that they definitely need to keep around if they're trying to build something special, like they were with. Yeah.
So the 2 safeties that were tagged, him and also Anthony Harris in Minnesota, both of them, there's been rumors that the Giants have been in contact with both of the teams regarding trading for those said players, which really made no sense to me, because as bad as the Giants defense is, the one spot on the defense that they seem to be set at is safety, with Jabril Peppers and incoming rookie Xavier McKinney. McKinney, who, I mean, I had ranked as a top 20 player on my board. Giants get him in the 2nd round. He's a Nick Saban safety. I mean, he's basically a clone of Landon Collins, who was the leader on the Giants defense for a number of years. Now you get someone like Xavier McKinney who plays a very different style of safety, which is great to when you have two different styles of safety. I think it offers so much more to that particular team, to Jabril Peppers. So I don't understand why the Giants felt the need to discuss trading for a safety like that, unless they were thinking about trying Jabril Peppers out as a cornerback, because the Giants definitely need help at the
Yeah,
corner.
I was gonna say that y'all probably should make some calls for the corners, not safeties. But
Yeah.
another guy that's really intriguing, Shaquille Barrett down in Tampa Bay, um, sack leader last year, tagged this year. I think what the Bucks are trying to do is see how Tom Brady works out, possibly, and then just get this man a bag of money. He's going to get paid after this year if he does anything like he did last year.
Oh yeah, man! Especially with the first half of the season, I think he had double-digit sacks by the time we hit week 8. He just had a monster start to the season. Luckily, he was able to play the Giants earlier on, and when you're able to go up against Nate Solder, especially last year, I mean, Nate Solder has just been such a disappointing signing for the Giants, and what should tell you enough about Nate Solder is that even in a situation that we're in right now, they're looking at Andrew Thomas to be their starting left tackle, someone who hasn't played a snap in the NFL yet. And you have Nate Solder, who's making $16 million a year. And Andrew Thomas is the one who they're going to have start out camp as the starting left tackle. And it sounds like Solder is going to have to even play for. He's not guaranteed a spot over on the right side. They also did draft Matt Peart out of Connecticut. They did sign Cameron Fleming. So they've got other options that they can use. Maybe they decide to kick him inside. He's not really built to play center. That the Giants have two really good guards in Zeitler and Hernandez. So, hey, Nate Solder, he's not guaranteed a spot on this roster.
No, definitely not. That could prove to be a cap eater for the foreseeable future. But who else was tagged? There were two offensive linemen. It was
Joe Tooney
and
from Washington, Brandon Sheriff.
Sheriff from Washington, yeah.
Brandon Sheriff was one of the players who was taken ahead of Leonard Williams. Washington took him with the pick before the Jets, and I was a little upset for two reasons. One, I was hoping Sheriff was going to fall to the Giants, and that would have been wonderful because the Giants ended up with Eric Flowers. We all know how that turned out. And one, I thought that, and if Leonard Williams had ended up in Washington, who knows if he was as disappointing there as he was in New York. Hey, who knows? The Redskins are probably then being the number one draft pick for the past couple seasons. But Brandon Sheriff has been one of the more solid. He's not going to be one of the top 2 or 3 guys year in, year out, but he's always going to be one of the top 10, top 12, and he's not going to have many plays where he just leaves you out to dry.
No, definitely. You don't really hear his name a lot, which is pretty good for an offensive guard. Like,
right.
He's not one to mess up a lot. And I thought it was really interesting that the Pats tagged Thuney, because I saw it as them extending a lifeline almost to Cam Newton. Like, hey, we're gonna help you out this much. Like, we're not gonna really give you that many weapons, but at least we're not gonna get you killed every play.
Yeah, well, I mean, they did make the decision to tag him before they brought in
Oh yeah.
Newton, but we don't. Tooney is one. I can't remember. Was it last year that he missed or the year before? Because I know he did miss a lot of one season.
This is the year before.
For Was it the year before? Um, and I mean, last year he wasn't really good last year. I know that there was one of the seasons he was out. One of the seasons he wasn't that great. Um, but it just tells you how important offensive linemen are. You can be an offensive one that a lot of people look at and say, "Oh, well, he's not that great," but they're just such a necessity to a team. Hey, Eric Flowers, the one who got ridiculed out of New York, just signed a 3-year, $30 million contract with the Rams, the Dolphins, and when I saw that, I was scratching my head and said, what team in their right mind would give $10 million a year to a player like Eric Flowers? And it just shows you how important offensive linemen are to a team.
No, definitely. They you can't go wrong with signing offensive linemen no matter what. Usually, honestly.
All right, so we're going to transition to our next topic, which is going to be the continuation of our top 5 segment. This week we are doing the top 5 cornerbacks in the NFL right now, and I have a feeling, especially judging by how some of the other top 5s have gone, a lot of the same players are going to be mentioned by the two of us. So why don't you lead us off with your number 1 guy?
I guarantee this is probably the same for us, but I got to go Stephon Gilmore,
Yeah.
Defensive Player of the Year last year, 6 interceptions, 20 pass breakups. The opponent's quarterback's passer rating when they threw to him was 44.1. And I mean, yeah, you can't really say much more about him. He's just the best in the game right now.
Yeah, man, and what's amazing is that, and I guess a lot of it has to do, I mean, that entire Patriots defense just had one of the more special seasons, especially considering they don't have any really, outside of Gilmore, any real superstar players that are lining up. It's just players that fit Belichick's system, and Belichick just has a way of getting the most out of the right players. And hey, some of that is probably bleeds into what Stephon Gilmore was able to do last year. He leads the NFL in passes defended, tied for the lead in interceptions, and he's as stout in the run game as a cornerback can be in the NFL right now. So yeah, Stephon Gilmore is my number 1.
Good. Glad we agree on that. My number 2, Marcus Peters. If the Rams could have held on to him and paired him alongside Jalen Ramsey, that would have been a scary, scary sight for teams everywhere. But he's a Raven now, and in the 9 games that he played with the Ravens, he had 3 interceptions, 10 pass breakups, and 2 defensive touchdowns. So right now, he's my number 2 right now.
He had immediate impact as soon as he was traded to Baltimore, and he turned a really good defense into a great defense.
Absolutely.
But we're a little different here. My number 2 is the guy who I just think is probably the most underrated player in the NFL right now. Does not get the credit he deserves. A lot of that goes along with the fact that he plays in Buffalo. Tre'Davious White is my number 2 guy. There's just nothing to dislike about his game. He goes against the number 1s, and he relishes. He wants it. He asks for those guys. He wants the pressure of playing against for why a cornerback to have 58 tackles in a season. Again, sometimes tackles for a cornerback can be misconstrued.
Hmm.
So you see, oh wow, look at the amount of tackles that he had. Well, a lot of the times that means, oh well, that just means they were throwing in his direction a lot, and the wide receivers were able to catch it, and then uh, then he made the tackle. That's not the issue with Tre'Davious White. Tre'Davious White is probably, and if there's anyone better at defending the run from the cornerback position than Stephon Gilmore, it's Tre'Davious White. He's my number 2.
Love that pick. You'll definitely see him on my list in a little bit. But my number 3, I got to go with Jalen Ramsey. You can make the argument for me, or you can make the argument that Ramsey has the talent to be the number 1 cornerback in the league. But after his pretty rough 2019 with the all too public breakup with the Jaguars, uh, and combined that with his worst season of his career in 2019, he only had 1 pick and allowed 66.2 a 66.2 completion rate. I think he's definitely primed for a bounce back year. He's going to have a full offseason with or as full as it can possibly get with COVID. But he's going to be with one team this year, and I mean he's been All Pro 1 year and he's made 3 Pro Bowls. I think he's definitely going to show that he's a top 5 cornerback this year.
Yeah, my number 3 player is someone who is a Baltimore Raven, but he's not Marcus Peters. He is his running mate, and that's Marlon Humphrey. Marlon Humphrey was one of the players I missed on in the draft. I was not nearly as high on him as I should have been, and he's made me eat my words. He just keeps getting better. First team All Pro last season. And he's one of those newer generation big cornerbacks. And it's funny when you look, he's 6 foot, 200 pounds, and that's a big cornerback. But he's one of the better jam cornerbacks in the game. And the guy that you just mentioned is probably, I think, the best jam cornerback in the game. But everything that happened last year with him in Jacksonville is the reason why he's not as high on my list. But I do have Marlon Humphrey at number 3.
Awesome. My number 4, guy you already mentioned, Tre'Davious White. I mean, he's stellar. First team All Pro 2019. And you pretty much covered everything about him. He's fantastic. He's a fantastic run defender, and he's only 25. So he has a lot to learn, and we haven't seen the best of him yet.
My number 4 is Marshawn Lattimore down in New Orleans. And this is someone who, when he came in, he had, and for a cornerback to have as an immediate impact as a rookie to a defense, as Lattimore did, he's the reason why that defense has been as him along with Cam Jordan. I think that the 2 main reasons why the Saints, who used to be thought of as this defensive sieve, have now become one of the better defenses in the league right now. And now he's going to have help around him. They did bring in Janoris Jenkins at the end of the year. If he can keep his head on straight, and one of the reasons why he was cut with the Giants was his off-field issues. I don't know if you know, Janoris Jenkins had he owned a property that he was letting his brother live in, and there was a murder at that building, at that house. That house just happens to be about 3/4 of a mile from my house, in the same town. Yeah, so it was a black eye on what is normally a very quiet town here, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, so I do have Marlon Humphrey. Just a lot of it is because of the immediate impact that he had on that defense.
No, I love that pick. And my number 5, Marshawn Lattimore. For all the reasons you just mentioned, they're also getting Malcolm Jenkins in the secondary.
Right.
That should bump him up as well. He made the Pro Bowl last year with only 1 interception. That'll show you just how scared quarterbacks are to throw in his direction. And he's young too. Like Tre'Davious White, we have yet to see the best of Marshawn Lattimore.
Yeah, and my number 5 is Jalen Ramsey. You hit the nail on the head. He has the potential to be the number 1 cornerback in the NFL right now. He needs to be able to be in a stable situation. Hopefully now, and again, you hit the nail on the head. He's going to be with a team from training camp till the end of the season, one that he is excited to be with. If he can rise to the level that he was in Jacksonville and do it now with the Rams are going to be a scary team, because I think they still have one of the better offenses in the league, even without Todd Gurley. But if they can get Jacksonville, like 2018 Jalen Ramsey, that's going to be a scary team, and Jalen Ramsey could very easily be number 1 on my list next year. So that's going to wrap up our top 5 segment. We are going to wrap up today's show with our fantasy football segment. This is going to be studs, duds, and sleepers. So the studs are going to be the players that or early in drafts that we're okay with taking even ahead of where they're normally going. Or the duds are going to be the players that we're not really interested in drafting, and the sleepers are going to be those late round guys that we love. So we'll start off with our stud. So who's the first guy that you have on your list?
My first stud, DeAndre Hopkins. He's in a lot of lists that I've seen, he's the 4th ranked wide receiver, which I think he should be the 1st ranked wide receiver. You got guys like Tyreek Hill over him. I disagree with that a lot, because he's going to be unlike in the Texans had a pretty good receiving cast, but when you got Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk around you to kind of draw off some defenders, I can see him having one of the best years of his career. And Kyler Murray was the offensive rookie of the year last year, who's primed to improve as well.
It's funny because the guy that I have is same team but different position, and that's Kenyon Drake, someone that we just talked about. You look at what Kenyon Drake was able to do in the short amount of time that he was with Arizona last year. He fits that system. He's a great up-tempo running back. That's what Cliff Kingsbury likes to run. They traded for him, and 4 days later, he totaled over 200 yards against the 49ers. Not saying that's what we're going to expect from Kenyon Drake all year, but right now, he's the 13th running back off the boards in terms of ADP. I'm willing to take Kenyon Drake at the end of round 1, early round 2, and right now he's going end of round 2, early round 3. So he's going to be my first guy.
Watch out for the Cardinals offense, I guess, next year.
Yeah.
And my second stud is going to be George Kittle. He's ranked 20th overall in some lists, which is in the second round. I think you got to get him inside the first round. Pro Football Focus had him ranked as the best player in the league last year. He's primed.
So good. He is so good.
He's so good. He's primed for another 1,000-yard season.
100,000, jeez.
And interesting enough, he was targeted on 28.2% of all the 49ers passing plays, which is 5% more than Travis Kelce. So that's something to take into account when you're looking at Kelce versus Kittle this year.
My second guy is wide receiver Kenny Golladay from the Detroit Lions. Right now, he's currently going off as the 8th wide receiver off the board. I have him inside my top 5. I think this is a guy. If Matt Stafford can stay healthy and stay on the field, look at what Golladay was able to do with Stafford over the first half of last season. I think there's only room to grow with Golladay, and I think he's going to be around for quite some time. He's a guy that I absolutely love, and I'm going to be. I've noticed myself leaning in the running back trend in the first 2 rounds. But if I do decide to go wide receiver in the second round, it's almost always been Kenny Golladay. So he's going to be my my second stud for this season.
Okay.
Who's going to be your first dud?
Oh, okay. This is gonna shake some people up, but I'm gonna go with Deshaun Watson.
Okay.
Watson threw 33% of his completions, passing yards, and touchdowns to DeAndre Hopkins last year, and they replaced DeAndre Hopkins with Brandon Cooks, who has a concussion, seems to always have a concussion. I've drafted Cooks in fantasy leagues for a weird amount of time. I don't know why he's always on my team for some reason, and he's always hurt. So. Yep. I think that we're going to see a pretty sharp drop in production from Watson. He's still a good quarterback, and when he's on the field, the Texans have a chance of winning. But in terms of fantasy production, I do not see him being in the top 7 or 8 for quarterbacks this year.
Yeah, I think he's definitely being overdrafted this year. I think a lot of people are putting too much into his actual athletic ability and not enough into who he's throwing the ball to.
Exactly.
My number 1 dud, and a lot of this is just because I think he's going to be the second wide receiver on the team. He's the second guy that I would draft on the Rams. But right now he's currently being drafted. Let's see, 13. So he's going off right now as the wide receiver 11. The guy that I prefer in the Rams offense, Robert Woods, is going off at the 24th wide receiver off the board. So my first stud is Cooper Kupp, just because I prefer Robert Woods to Cooper Kupp this year, and then you throw on the 2-round difference. I just can't see myself drafting Cooper Kupp in any league this year.
Absolutely. My second dud, and he's a dud for similar reasons as my first dud, Kirk Cousins. I'm not touching Kirk Cousins with a 10-foot pole this year. He lost Stephon Diggs, and even though they didn't really have a great relationship between the two, Adam Thielen by himself cannot just carry Kirk Cousins like Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen can. But to go along with that, he also lost Kevin Stefanski. Stefanski is now the head coach of the Browns. They had a great relationship, and I think Stefanski really, really helped Kirk Cousins. So I think Kirk Cousins is going to be pretty bad this year.
Yeah, I mean,
especially with Dalvin Cook primed for a great year on the ground.
Right, and who even knows? We don't know what Dalvin Cook's situation actually is going to be. He's threatening a holdout if he doesn't get a new contract, and the success of Kirk Cousins, I think, lies in a lot in what Dalvin Cook's able to bring, because Dalvin Cook is going to stack boxes, and that's when Kirk Cousins seems to have his best success. Without Dalvin Cook, I think potentially without Dalvin Cook. You're looking at a -4 Cousins, and also they're now looking at a rookie to hopefully come in and be their number 2 in Justin Jefferson, and you'll see with my second dud, it's going to be one of the rookies. We don't know what rookies are going to be able to do, and Justin Jefferson also was primarily a slot player at LSU, which is where Adam Thielen likes to run out of. One of them's going to have to move to the outside, and I think it's going to cause some inconsistencies for the two of them. But my second dud of this year is, even though he's in a great situation, is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Right now, he's the 12th running back off the board, according to Fantasy Pros. Not enough people, I think, realize Damian Williams is still there. Damian Williams could have easily been the Super Bowl MVP.
Playoff Damian.
I mean, and I think Damian Williams is a really good fit for that system. What they did with Clyde Edwards-Helaire is bring in a guy who's probably better fit for that system, but we don't know what Edwards-Helaire is going to be able to bring right away, especially in terms of pass blocking. He wasn't asked to do a whole lot of it at LSU. Now he's going to have to protect Patrick Mahomes. And Damian Williams is actually one of the better pass blocking running backs around right now. So he's just again, a lot of this is based on where they're currently going right now. I just don't see myself in a redraft league being anywhere close to picking Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
No, definitely. Protecting Patrick Mahomes is not a job to be taken lightly. So if he messes up a few times, I wouldn't be shocked if they yanked him out of passing down situations.
Yep. All right. Now, sleepers, those later round guys, who are you finding yourself drafting more as we get towards the end of these drafts?
I got number 1 is N'Keal Harry. Missed most of his rookie season with a leg injury. First round pick for the Pats. Never really developed a connection with Tom Brady, but he's gone now, obviously. I see no reason why he shouldn't be their biggest weapon next year if he can develop that connection with Cam. And he's the 62nd ranked wide receiver on a lot of boards that I've seen. So if you're willing to do a late round gamble, I think Harry has a potential to pay off.
Oh yeah, and last week we had John Laub from FootballDiehards.com on, and N'Keal Harry was one of the guys that he was big on. You look at Cam Newton's success, and a lot of them have been with those wider framed players, and that's N'Keal Harry in this offense. Right now, my first sleeper is going to be someone who's currently going off as the 31st running back off the board, number 80 overall, and that's Kareem Hunt out of Cleveland. You brought up the name Kevin Stefanski. Stefanski, I think, is going to be wonders for both Nick Chubb and especially Kareem Hunt. I think Kareem Hunt is going to see a lot of time in the slot as well as a running back. So in PPR leagues, I'm finding myself with Kareem Hunt all over the place. So who's your final sleeper?
My final sleeper is my tight end in Dallas, Blake Jarwin. He's entering his 4th year.
All right, I have so many shares so far of Blake Jarwin.
He's entering his 4th year in the league after 2 years kind of serving as Jason Witten's shadow. He seems to have learned a lot. The Cowboys have enough faith in him to sign him to a 3-year, $24 million contract. And he has the best wide receiving core in the league around him. Teams are going to be so focused on shutting down Amari, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Gallup that they're not, and Zeke, that they're really just not going to have time to look at Blake Jarwin. So I think that's when he's going to slip through the cracks. And he's explosive. He has the ability to catch a ball and take it 60 yards for a touchdown. So he's ranked as the 16th overall tight end, I believe, right now. So I think that would be a great value pick.
My second sleeper is also a tight end, and he's a tight end who has switched teams. And in fact, well, I mean, according to Fantasy Pros right now, he is the 16th tight end off the board right now. And that's Hayden Hurst down in Atlanta. Matt Ryan has a long history of being able to make really good fantasy players out of his tight ends. They have, I think, the third most vacated targets of any team last year. And he's going to be the guy over the middle. They've got those two great receivers on the outside in Julio and Calvin Ridley. I think it's just going to open up a lot of space for someone like Hayden Hurst, who needs to be able to stay healthy. But Hayden Hurst is someone that I'm finding myself drafting just a lot.
Like that pick.
All right, so that's going to wrap it up for today's show. Clarke, you can find on Twitter at Clarke_Wood17. I'm rstern33 on Twitter. Again, find the show on Twitter and on Facebook, and check out backsportspage.com for all the great content that is going up. Clarke, we will talk next week. All right, bud? Have a great one.
Absolutely. Great show, Ryan.